So now we're going to move on from our What's the Weather app, and we're going to look at a new and hugely important and powerful API, the Google Maps API. You're almost certainly familiar with Google Maps. It's a great way to navigate from place to place, and it's a really excellent way to put maps into your websites and your apps. So take a moment to navigate to cloud.google.com/maps-platform, and if you want, have a quick scan of what's available on the Google Maps API. Essentially, you can do anything that you might want to do with maps, including working with navigation and finding specific places like restaurants, parks, etc. within your website. It might be worth quickly checking the pricing page. You get a lot on the free tier, and definitely as you're just developing, it's very unlikely you'll end up paying for anything, but always bear in mind that if your website does start getting popular, you'll likely start having to pay for your Google Maps API usage. Okay, in this video, we're just going to look at a few of the basic features of the Google Maps API, how to get started, how to display a simple map on your website, how to style that map, how to add places onto the map, and finally, how to add the user's location onto the map. So to get started, we tap the Get Started button, and then pick which APIs we want to kick off with. We'll go for just maps for now. The routes and places work in a very similar way, so you'll be able to extend the code that we cover in this lecture to those pretty easily. And then continue. And then we need a project to be working with. If you've already got a project on the Google platform, you can use that, or we can create a new one. I'll just call it Test Maps Project. You can call it whatever you like, and then click Next. And then we'll need to set up billing. You probably already have a credit card connected to your Google account, but if you don't, you'll need to add one here. I've got just one billing account added, so I'm going to use that one. If you don't have one, you'll be prompted to add credit card details, and do be aware that you will start to get charged if your Maps account goes over the free usage limit. Okay, next again, and it will now set up the Google Maps APIs on your account and give you a API key, which you can use to, here we go, refer to yourself in your scripts. And there we go. So I'm going to copy that to the clipboard and then click Done. One thing just to point out before we go on and use the key to build a real MapSpace website is it is definitely worth securing your key and clarifying, so if it's only going to be used on one particular website, what that website is going to be, to prevent other people from using your key without your permission. But we'll leave that for now. We're going to jump back to where we started. That is cloud.google.com/maps-platform. And then we're going to move on to the documentation. That's where all the documentation is stored. And by the way, if you can't find that link, if it's moved around on the website, you can go straight to developers.google.com/maps/documentation. Okay, and then we scroll down to see that there are various ways that you can access the API if you're working on apps, for example, but we want to work through the web, so we're going to choose the JavaScript API. And again, if you can't find that link, you might just want to go straight to developers.google.com/maps/documentation/javascript/tutorial. And then, very conveniently, we've got a great Hello World HTML page here, which I'm going to copy and paste into my text editor, get it working, and then we'll have a look through and see what this code is doing. So I'm going to head over to my Finder. I've got a test.html blank document set up on my desktop, and I'm going to open that up with brackets, and I'm going to paste the code of the sample page in. And then the one change we need to make is we need to replace your API key here with our API key. So I'll go back over to my Google Cloud Platform console and copy that and then paste it in right there. And that's it. Let's have a quick look and make sure it works. So I'm just going to save that file, go back over to Finder, and then open it up in Chrome. And there we go. So we have our very own web page with our map up and running, and you can see it's got all the basic features of Google Maps. You can switch to satellite view, zoom in and out, even drag the little man in for Street View if you like. So that's already a very powerful thing to be able to do. Let's have a quick look at the code and see how it's doing it. So it's pretty straightforward. We've got all our basic elements of an HTML page here, a little bit of styling to make it a full page map. And then we've got an empty div with an ID of map, which is obviously where our map is going to be contained. And then a bit of JavaScript here, which creates the map. So it creates a variable called map, and then it creates a function called initMap, which initializes the map using various settings. So you can see it takes the variable map here and turns it into a new Google Maps map based on the div with an ID of map, which is this one here. And then it adds a couple of settings, sets the center, gives a certain latitude and longitude, and gives a certain zoom level as well. So let's see what happens if we up the zoom level to say 15 and then refresh the page. You can see we're far more zoomed in. So here's a quick challenge for you. Can you change this code so it shows us a map of London, which is reasonably zoomed out so that we can see the whole of London? Good luck. Go for it. Did you manage it? It's simply a matter of knowing the latitude and longitude of London. Which Google, of course, can tell us. Latitude and longitude of London. There we go. So the latitude is 51.5. Let's pop that in there. And the longitude 0.1278. We probably don't need to be that accurate, but that'll work. And then let's guess the zoom level. I'm going to be slightly more zoomed in than we started with. Let's see if a zoom level of 9 looks about right. And there we go. That's pretty good. You might want to zoom in a little bit more just so that we only have London, but I think that's pretty close to what we were looking for. Great. Just one final bit to note in the code is that, of course, we have this script down here, which is what is doing the magic. So this is calling Google Maps API JavaScript and essentially telling it to run the initMap function, which is what we've defined here. So really, that's the basics of adding maps to your app. Of course, they don't need to be full screen. We can make them, let's say, 200 pixels square, just like any other div, and that will then appear as part of your website rather than the whole thing. But for now, let's leave it as full screen. Okay, so now we'll just jump back over to the documentation and just see a couple of other things that we can do. So quickly here, we'll see how to add a marker onto our map, which is something common you might want to do if you're writing a contact us page, for example, and you want to show where a business is on the map. You can do that very easily. So again, let's take the code here. And I'm going to just replace everything, which means I'll have to copy my key again and pop it back in here. So again, let's have a look, just make sure that works, and then we'll take a moment to look at the code, see what it's doing. There we go. So we've got a marker at a place called, oh dear, I don't think I'm even going to try and pronounce that, but at that place there. And this is created again. We've got the same setup as before with an initMap function there, but this time we're using some different settings to add our marker. So we've got a variable called Uluru with a certain latitude and longitude. And then we create our map, and you can see here we're creating a new marker at that location. So another quick challenge for you. Can you create a map with a marker on Niagara Falls? Simple as that. Go for it. All right, Hope you managed it. Again, it's just a matter of getting the location, that is the latitude and longitude of the place where you want to add a marker, and adding those in there. And in fact, that should be enough. Let's have a look. And something's gone horribly wrong there. Hopefully some of you had got this problem and saw how to fix it. This time, instead of east, you can see we've got 79 degrees west. And we put that into our website using minus 79.0849. So if you see south there on the latitude, then you'll need to add a minus in there as well. Okay, try that again. And there we go. So that is now centered nicely on Niagara Falls. Of course, to make your code make sense, I'd rename that variable Niagara so that when you come back to it, you're not completely confused as to why you've called Niagara Uluru. All right, so we're nearly there. The last thing we're going to do is see how to style your map. So on the left there, we've got the link. Again, if the link's in a different place, you might just want to go straight to the URL, which is that one there. Styling maps is pretty easy. And as before, we'll take the code, copy it, run it, and then have a look to see what it's doing. And because I've replaced the API key, I'll need to put that back in again. Okay, let's have a look. And there we go. So I've got a nice night mode map of New York City there. Let's have a little look. So once again, we're using the function initMap to create our map. This time we've got a center somewhere in New York City and a zoom level, and this time we have a styles object. And all it's doing is adding styles to various elements. So you can see we've got some geometry here with a certain color, labels text, and labels text fill, again with certain colors, and you can add any settings you want. We've got points of interest there, parks, roads, highways, etc., etc. So you get the idea. You can customize the display of pretty much anything on the map. And just one more thing, the Google Maps API also makes it very easy to get the user's location, which can be extremely useful if you want to create a website that shows them places near them, for example. So let's see how we do that. You can see an option here called geolocation. So click on that option. Geolocation is essentially working out the location of your users. So let's see how it's done. Just as we've done before. Take the sample code, copy it into your site, and then replace your API key with your API key. Okay, and let's take a look. If we refresh that now, and now you'll see that we're asked whether we want to allow this website to view our location. So click allow, and then it should jump over to your location with a little box there. You'll notice that it's not super accurate depending on the device that you're on. I'm actually in Cambridge over here, so it's not super close. If you're on a phone, it should use the GPS to give you a more accurate location, but if you're just on Wi-Fi, it won't be particularly accurate. But let's just have a quick look and see how it's doing that. So it's a little bit more complicated this time, but again, we're creating the map using the initMap method. And you can see this time we've got an info window, which is this little box here. And you can see what it's doing is attempting to get the location. And when it does that, if it's successful, i.e. you've given it permission and the browser gives your location to the script, then it processes that, gets the latitude and longitude, sets the position for the info window, sets a bit of content, and puts the info window on the map. and then it also sets the center of the map. That's if it's successful. If it's not, then it shows an appropriate error message. And that's processed down here in this handle location error function, where it gives the user an appropriate error. So there we go. That's how you get the user's location and show it on a map using the Google Maps API. All right. So there's obviously a huge amount more you can do with the Google Maps API. This is just a way to get you started and to see how useful the Google documentation is and how easy it is to create your own maps from it. So have a think about how you might add some maps to a website you're working on. And when you've done that, come back and I'll see you in the next video.